So welcome everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are. Thanks so much for joining us today for Global Wellness Institute Initiative Collaboration Call hosted by the Wellness Tourism Initiative. The topic of the call is new research. What will the future of wellness tourism look like? And we're really excited to learn more about this topic and also the survey results of the initiative. Before we get started, I just want to quickly share with you the bubble chart of the global wellness economy research, since some of you might not be familiar with it yet. So the size of the bubbles indicate the size of the wellness sector's revenue per year. And as you can see, wellness tourism, the bright pink one, is very big with $639 billion, which is amazing. And the chart and also the research is available on our Global Wellness Institute website. And now I'm delighted to introduce Katherine Droga and Adam Glickman. They both chair this important initiative. Thank you so much for organizing the call today and for all you're doing with your initiative. And over to you now. Adam and Katherine, you're muted. You can unmute on the bottom left. And
perfect.
Great.
Thank you so much. And as on behalf of the Wellness Tourism Initiative team, who are actually all on the call today, it's really exciting to be able to share with you just some of the insights and learnings that we have to date. We hope that you finish this call with perhaps just one more valuable insight that you can apply to your business as a result of joining us. Beatrice has given you a couple of the sort of quick housekeeping rules before we kick off, but just a couple of others. She's muted all of us, and so when you want to speak, can you please just unmute? The mute is at the bottom left hand side there. And when you want to ask a question, just introduce yourself the first time in terms of who you are, your business name, and which country you're coming from. So the other thing is, if you want to change your view as well, there's two options in the right hand side of the panel: the speaker view or the gallery view. So you can switch between the two depending on how you feel. And the big one is really put some questions in the chat, so that what we'll do is we'll look at those as we go through. We want this to be really participatory, to make sure that you get the most out of the session. And there's lots of wisdom in terms of the types of people that are on this call. So I'm pretty excited to kind of include that. So how we're going to run today is in there's four key parts of what we're going to do. So the first thing I want to do is run you through the kind of top line findings from our research study that we've just done in terms of post-COVID wellbeing and travel intention. And then what we'll do post that is deep dive into kind of three key topics that we think relate to the research and are really important at this time for all of us. The first is specifically talking about hotels and resorts and the impact and the opportunities in that space. The second area will be around destinations and attractions and what they need to be thinking about at the moment. And finally, we want to kind of bounce around that concept of innovation and technology from a wellness travel perspective. So that's sort of where we're up to. I'd love to really briefly introduce the team that are on the call, and they will come through. Adam's going to moderate the panel, my vice chair for the initiative. And so I'll hand over to him to do that in post the research. Joe Barber from WeAffirm in Singapore is on the line. Vijay Kumar, founder of AU Universe in India. Sandra Billy, founder of Side Note Consulting in Italy. Daniel Poulin, Director of Spa and Fitness for North and Central America for Accor. And Awana Marian from Despra Spa in Romania. So with this initiative, we really tried to get a global representation on our initiative. And if there is anybody
Did Katherine freeze for YouTube? Yeah. Adam, might you maybe be able to jump in?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. Until Katherine.
I don't think they would put it through another angle.
Until Katherine comes back, I'm Adam from the US in Parallax Hospitality, and it's great to be here with you. Our team, I think Katherine just completed introducing everybody, but our team of 7 has been working on really trying to quantify and understand the needs of the wellness traveler for the last 2 years. Earlier this year, before COVID, we shared and released the first part of our study, and that study was done before COVID was in any of our lives, and it was all around understanding what wellness travelers were seeking in the marketplace, and wanted to say what would impact their desire in a hotel, in a resort, what would be important for different destinations to consider in terms of activities, amenities, programming. We released that study, and that's on the Global Wellness Institute initiatives page. Kind of as COVID entered our lives, we realized that the insights that were shared then are very different because some people can't travel, some people's minds are in a very different place financially, mentally, emotionally, physically. And so what we did was we enhanced the original survey and asked them just the similar questions with some enhancements to get some additional perspective. So we had nearly 2,000 new respondents answer this updated survey. We put the survey out globally from the very end of May through the beginning of July. So we got feedback really as everybody was in this period where they were aware of what was going on. They knew the kind of new normal of not being able to travel and recognize that maybe what they wanted isn't necessarily what they could do. And that is the aha that we kind of learned through putting out the survey. So I'm gonna check and see if Katherine's back. If she is, I'm gonna pass the sword to her. If not, I will jump on in and share some highlights of the results. Katherine, are you here? Okay. So kind of not to release everything, and we will push this out. I think there are a couple big ahas, and what we did was we looked at the results of the survey both globally as well as within the various regions. A large number of the respondents were from Australia. We had a good portion from North America, the US and Canada, several from Central Europe, from different European countries. The biggest takeaway for me was that the results are not varying dramatically by different regions. And people's point of view really was, for the most part, the same in different places. There were some unique local nuances, where, as an example, in North America, we kind of saw a higher drive rate for different activities than, say, in some place like Australia, where there's easier access to flights. So we had that incorporated into the study. But I'm gonna give you guys a couple of quick highlights, and then—
Oh, sorry, Adam, I'm back.
You're back. Great, perfect timing.
Yeah.
So I gave you back.
I don't know. Sorry about that. I think my internet in Australia went to sleep as it went to 10 minutes to midnight. It just decided to go, I'm going off. So that hasn't happened before, but we're back in action. So Adam, have you given the background on both studies or just the first one?
All the background is done. So we are ready for you to run into the results of our new study.
Perfect. Have we just covered the skew in terms of the current study, in terms of the bias around North America and Australia?
Yeah, we talked about the regions and all the background. So
perfect. Great. Okay, awesome. So the other thing just to note is that the 77% of respondents are female, and the largest majority of those demographically were 43% were aged 35 to 49, but a really nice representative in terms of the other, 55% North America and Australia, the rest, we had 80 countries, which is pretty impressive in terms of representation. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen and take you through our presentation. So hopefully you can all see that now. So the first piece that I wanted to kind of share about with our results was that, in keeping with the GWI, we have some silver linings in terms of wellness travel that have come out of this survey. And really the first one for me that I wanted to share was the unexpected benefits that people have had as a result of their wellbeing or lifestyle restrictions of COVID. It's a really tough time, as we know, for many individuals in many countries, but 70% of all our respondents globally all said, and that was consistent across all markets, said that they had experienced some unexpected benefits. And the key benefits that they really felt, and this is in priority order, was a deeper connection to family, eating healthier, less stress, better sleep, and increased fitness. So for me, that was a great kind of insight and a start. Despite all the challenges that people are seeing, there was definitely a silver lining. The second really interesting insight in this space of unexpected benefits was the trial of new wellness experiences by our respondents. And over 1 in 4, so a quarter of our respondents that participated in the survey have actually participated in a new wellness offering that they haven't tried previously. And so that was a really nice piece. And in actual fact, the North American respondents was even higher. So 31% of North American respondents had participated in something that they hadn't done before. And you know, no brainers as to where that was. That was very much in the tech space. So wellness tech trial and usage has been really booming in this during this COVID environment. So we asked the question, since COVID-19, have you used or purchased any new online wellness apps or offerings? And so the results were pretty phenomenal. So 33% have in fact purchased or trialed something new. And that is in addition to the 40% that were already using something online. The most popular things that people were using was mindfulness and kind of yoga, Pilates types of experiences online. And then it came down to really fitness, walking, hiking, jogging apps, gym home fitness apps. And what was really interesting also was things like sound healing came up. You know, around 11% of people were using sound healing, spiritual kind of online connections were about 16%. So overall, we're talking about 73% of our respondents utilising online technologies in the wellness space during this COVID time. And interestingly enough, again, the North Americans were probably the ones that were most likely to embrace the new use of online technologies, with 38% of them nominating that they'd tried something. From an India perspective, they were probably our lowest use, with 46% of them not usually using online for wellness, but 21% of them had started. The next thing we looked at was just really checking in on everybody and saying, how much of a priority is your personal well-being now during COVID? And really, there's no surprises that the question we asked was, when the restrictions lift, do you think your focus on wellbeing will increase, decrease, or maintain the same? So 56% of our respondents said that they saw that their priority on their wellbeing would increase, and then 33% said it would remain the same. So that's telling us the opportunity for wellness travel, you know, lies in this kind of increased need to take good care of ourselves. It's quite logical. But what was even more surprising with the data was when we sort of drilled down in terms of wellness travel. And so we asked the question, when the restrictions are lifted, will your intention for wellness travel stay the same, decrease because of your other demands or challenges in your life, or increase? And so we were really impressed to see 42% of respondents said that their intention for wellness travel will actually increase. So that's a huge pool of opportunity. And the data was quite consistent across the world. So there was really no peaks or spikes in that. It was just a pretty consistent message. Then we specifically asked about wellness travel intention over the next 12 months. And we saw that about 80% of respondents intended to take a holiday in the next 12 months when restrictions lift. And 76% of them said that it would include a wellness component, which is fantastic. So there is a heightened intention and appetite out there for travel, because we've obviously been, you know, cooped up for quite a while. And within that, the majority of people are wanting to incorporate wellness. 13% of those people are really dedicating their next trip to be a primary wellness trip. So those ones that is the main reason for the trip is actually a wellness experience. And 63% are really taking a trip where they're going to add a wellness component to an existing kind of leisure holiday. We then asked about what are the underlying motivations at the moment in terms of, you know, wellness travel, and what are the reasons that you're traveling. We benchmarked this the year before, and so we asked the exact same question again, and then we have seen some pretty good shifts or big shifts around that. And one thing we've noticed here is that the primary reason, there's many reasons, it's not a silver bullet, everyone is different, but the increasing need to de-stress is really kind of championed up to the #1 spot. It used to be really maintaining or rebooting my well-being was really what people were kind of saying was their main reason from our research, but now it's really all about de-stressing and relaxing, and then it was maintaining our well-being, improving, rebooting. And what was interesting is adventure has really come up into the top 5. It wasn't in the top 5 at that level before, and so it's really interesting that it has started to really resonate as a reason. And then if we look at the nuances that we saw in terms of the markets, which is no surprise again in terms of the significance and seriousness of COVID, but in North America, the drive to travel for a decrease of stress was higher than our average, so it was sitting there at 46%. And also in the UK and Europe, that was sitting at around 45%. Less so in a market like Australia, where it was under that average. And, you know, the other really interesting question that we asked was, with this wellness travel that people are going to, with this intention to take a trip and include a wellness travel component, are people willing to spend the same amount or less or more? And so what we found really positive for the industry was that 70% of respondents said they intend to spend the same amount as they did prior to COVID. So the opportunity there is pretty strong. 6% said more and 24% said they will be spending less. And also that 62% of trips that people are intending to take in the next 12 months were unplanned. So they hadn't planned to take these trips, but COVID had led to them to really start to want to incorporate that into what they're doing. Final bit I really wanted to touch on before we open it up for conversation was really the expectations of the wellness traveller, and this will be something that we talk about in some more detail shortly. But we asked the question, on your next trip, what are you really looking for, and how does this kind of relate to our benchmarking work in terms of what are people expecting to seek out? Nature is always consistently #1, and it's stayed at that top slot with about the same amount of respondents. Fresh quality local produce again has stood there at the 2nd spot. What has moved up has been outdoor activities. So that was far lower before, but really that's risen up. Quality accommodation has always been there. The spa experience, and that has dropped slightly from our pre-stuff. I think this is really related to the next trip rather than, you know, the intention that spa is dropping overall. It was just probably at the time that we did the survey. And what is really interesting is sustainability and eco. So this concept of sustainability in terms of an expectation on a wellness traveller's, you know, list of expectations has been consistent pre and post COVID. What we have seen is some markets indexing far higher in this space. Places like Australia are consistently higher for their expectations in this, and North America is consistently lower, so sitting at about 22%. So you know, Europe is probably in the middle in terms of that. So a really interesting kind of concept around sustainability that I think we should explore some more. So it's always consistently in the top 5 responses. The other thing that's really interesting is we asked a question pre-COVID in our survey, which was, you know, around this space of quality accommodation and leisure. And we asked the question, are you willing to spend more for accommodation that has wellness offerings that best meet your needs? And pre-COVID, 53% of respondents said they always or most of the time are prepared to pay more for a quality accommodation that meets their wellness needs. And nearly 1/3 of all respondents said they were willing to pay more than 16%. So really the discussion today is around, you know, tapping into those people that are really seeking, you know, a great wellness experience. The other point I would make around these ones is that that's only the top sort of 5 or 6 experiences that we have. But natural therapies came up really high in terms of, in some markets as well, in terms of Ayurveda. Mindfulness as well is another really important kind of priority for markets around activities. So it's not that these things weren't sitting up there, they just weren't as high in terms of the percentages and ratios. And they were much higher, some of these therapies in Asia, sort of the natural therapies came up obviously very strongly, which was quite interesting. We did some research also on the work, wellness and work, which we won't cover unless we have time at the end. So we did a couple of bits on wellness and work travel and the intention around that space. Happy to touch on it if we have time after our discussion. But I think what's really important now is that we throw it open to a bit of a discussion around what do these insights mean in terms of harnessing it for your individual business, and what do they practically look at in terms of opportunities. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. The other point to make is that we will send you all this information. So we'll follow up with an email post and give you the slides, and also send you the link to the phase 1 research that we did. So I hope that's a good kickoff. And I'll pass now to Adam in terms of kicking off the moderation.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everybody. So thank you, Katherine, for a great quick summary of the research study that our team put together. And just to reiterate what Katherine just said, Beatrice put in the links in the chat earlier where on the initiatives page the existing research was. On this Zoom call is the first time we released the new study that we completed. And so we will put together similar summaries, but if there is a specific market or region that you really would love to drill in about the needs of customers from that area, we're happy to share it, and we will put that together for anybody on the call. Because really the goal of the work that we're doing is to kind of rise all ships, and the more that we can share insight and information, the more we can help businesses. So that is really kind of where Katherine started and what our kind of mission as a team for the work that we're doing is. So with that, we're going to jump in. What we're going to try to do is focus our conversation on a handful of key topics related to wellness, travel, and tourism. And the first is very centered around the idea of what's going to happen and experiences that may change in hotels and resorts or destination spas. And what we'll do as we go through this conversation is each of the team members on the initiative team are going to jump in with some of their thoughts and then really open it up to the group. So please balance, use chat, jump in, like Katherine said, raise your hand, but please ask questions. So one big insight that we gained from the research was the length of time that people said they would be interested in traveling when they're able to again post-COVID. And I think a really big aha, particularly for the North American market, was that that length of trip is relatively short. A lot of, over 55% of respondents said that they were seeking and would expect to do kind of an under 7-day trip, with a pretty sizable number in that kind of 1 to 3 day range. And so what I want to do is kind of kick it off to Daniel. Daniel runs well-being for North and Central America for Accor. And really the first big question we want to jump into with is, how do we expect the guest experiences will start evolving in hotels and resorts as wellness and individuals' well-being becomes really top of mind? There's a lot of focus right now on sanitation and cleanliness protocols, and each of the global hotel companies have put out their platforms centered around those, but it has to go beyond just ensuring clean and ensuring safe. So Daniel, would you mind jumping in and share some thoughts?
Sure, Adam, thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. I think one of the biggest impact of the crisis has been the isolation that people have had to, that was forced upon them. And I think that has created a lot of health issues. And I think that over the coming months, we will see the results and the consequences of the fact that people had to isolate for such long period of time. And I think one of the tendency in hotels is to think about designs and how we're going to be changing our facilities in order to accommodate a virus that hopefully will one day not be there anymore. I think that our focus should probably be on how we counteract the effect of the isolation that it had on people, and maybe creating programs that are more social and more would allow for people to get together. So as we've seen from the results that Katherine just shared, there seems to be a huge demand for adventure and obviously outdoor activities. And to me, this brings the aspect of social wellness. I think that's in hotels, we don't tend to do so well usually in terms of creating programs that facilitate the interaction in between guests. When you go to a spa, it's often a one-person unique experience. There's very little facilities that makes people connect with one another. And I'm really hoping that the results of this pandemic will probably be to create programs and activities and facilities that actually will facilitate the social interactions of people. So that's my take on that.
Great. And Daniel, are there any programs that you're noticing within your portfolio of hotels that are either new or kind of a response to customer demand that are being rolled out that you might share with the group, or ideas to suggest?
Yeah, no, exactly. We are reopening our spas, and as most people on the call would know, the spa business is booming. People have felt the lack of touch over the last few months, and they are coming back to our spas with huge numbers at the moment. Another sector that is actually really booming is the recreation activities, and all of our resorts that offer outdoor activities, whether it's canoe, hiking. It is crazy the amount of people who are wanting to participate. Just think about it. In the last few months, we all started focusing on our health and wellness. Most people have increased their level of fitness, and they realize how great they feel and how they want to continue as things go back to normal. And I think that this is what they're going to search when they come to our hotels, is really those strong activities. It's almost, I call it well-doing. We talk about well-being, which often is more of a passive way of looking after your well-being by receiving a treatment, by doing meditation, for example. But sometimes we forget the active part of well-being, which is really the adventure seekers, the fitness, the great connection that you make, the cooking classes, the things that you actually do and actually impact how you feel and how you work on your well-being by actually doing something.
That's great, Daniel. And so I'm going to open it up to the group and see if others kind of have thoughts around kind of the changes in the hotel and resort space. I just quickly will build off one note Daniel said based on our research. We did find kind of an increase in this updated version of the survey of how respondents answered kind of their primary focus is around adventure. We saw that kind of reached 40%. And that I think aligns really well to the point Daniel's making of seeing guests seek canoeing, outdoor activities. And that is something, as I think about marketers out there, what message do they push out to try to reach customers of what they're seeking right now? So with that, I'd love to ask anybody on the Zoom, anybody want to chime in? Any advice or suggestions from anyone in the audience before we bounce on? Okay, well, we'll continue on to our next question. If anyone does want to get involved and engage, the idea for these Zooms is to be as collaborative as possible. So please feel free to jump in on chat or raise your hand or ping us, and we'd love to bring the conversation your way. The next area that we'll want to explore a little bit is not just around hotels and resorts individually, but it kind of begins to move to destinations or activities. And the question really is, how should destinations and attractions within a market start thinking about different ways to embrace this increased focus on wellness tourism now? And what are the kinds of things that they should be trying to do to bring customers their way? How should we think about maybe updated messaging or go-to-market strategies and plans with so many restrictions in the short term, meaning we all can't go everywhere we want to go? So what are some of the go-to-market messaging and plans that should kind of come into place? So I'd love to bounce it to my colleague Jo from Singapore and let her chime in and share some thoughts.
I don't know, maybe Jo has her. Jo, do you have your, or maybe we've lost Jo. Do you want me to just pick up on that to kick off, Adam?
Why don't you jump in, Katherine? That'd be great.
Okay. Sure. So I guess from a destination perspective, and I work with a couple of destinations around the world in this space, this is the time for countries that perhaps haven't been looking in the wellness travel space to really look. We've just demonstrated what the consumer demand is, and appetite and increase for wellness travel experiences. So the opportunity for destinations is really, for me, it's twofold. It's authenticity and sustainability. It's looking at what you have as a country or a region that is unique to your country. And in particular, looking at your natural attractions. Daniel talked about those experiences, and looking at your culture and connection to community as well. And bundling that up. So not trying to be everything to everybody, but as a destination, play to your strengths. And I think that's the same for attractions. So if we think about what the lowest hanging fruit at the moment is it's the domestic audience. With current restrictions, this proves a great opportunity for some countries and a challenge for others. So obviously those countries that have a large population with an income to spend on domestic, Australia, for example, gets 80% of its revenue from a domestic segment. So it's, international is extremely important, but the volume of contribution to GDP and tourism is quite significant. So if you're thinking about the domestic market, which we have a country that you're in, the benefits and the messaging around, in particular, if we think about that customer mindset, it's around lesser known destinations, space, and the opportunity to discover undiscovered parts of your own country or your backyard. So that's what the customer's looking for, is space, and these spots where they can disperse regionally. So these are opportunities for destinations to look at, connecting with consumer needs that we need. When we talk about sustainability, that's really that essence of purpose-driven travel. Whether it's an attraction or whether it's a destination, the thinking behind that is really go back to the customer and really think about what they're looking for, and ask the question, how am I delivering a product or a wellness experience that is contributing to my local community, to my culture, to the conservation of my natural area, and also, benefiting from an economic perspective. So what is happening at the moment, and I'm seeing this, I'm doing some work in Sri Lanka at the moment, and I'm seeing that those attractions or operators that really have a relationship with their visitors and guests in this spread are able to connect and some of those international, an example I have is an operator in Sri Lanka that has an international reliant, experiential, nature-based operator. By having that connection to those people now, they're reaching in and supporting him and his operation during these tough times, because most of his money goes back to the local community. He does mangrove planting, sustainability work, and so that his customers are getting behind him. So I think this is a really a key one to go, how are you delivering a purpose-driven experience in a wellness travel perspective, and how are you being unique to your destination or your attraction in this space?
And so, thank you, Catherine. And I'm going to just build on with one more go-to-market thought from kind of really thinking about that idea of what's in your backyard and marketing that, and then love to open it up to the group. But one of the pieces of insight from our research was positioning around customers were seeking in trips around his wellness, the primary focus, where it's part of the trip. And the vast majority of customers or consumers that responded to our survey globally in the different regions said 65% plus said they're looking for experiences where wellness is part of it, but not where wellness is the primary purpose. And so I think there is a go-to-market message in that as an attraction or a small destination to say, what are the aspects of well-being that you can focus on that might not center around the entirety of the trip, but are part of it to latch on to the customer. And if you're a resort, as an example, that has a spa, but you also have golf amenities and outdoor amenities, kind of what Daniel was just talking about, instead of centering around every aspect of the well-being experience, and you pick just a few that attracts the different people in a family or a group of friends that are going to be willing to travel to capture them. So that would be something that, based on the insight, I definitely say to focus on. How can you address the where is wellness part of an experience versus the whole of it? So with that, I'd love to open it up to the group. Any other feedback from anybody representing a destination or a CV, a Convention and Visitors Bureau, or a set of attractions that would like to contribute or share thoughts? I think I see Jo here and she's talking, but unfortunately I don't think we can hear her. Okay, we're gonna go on, and Jo, if you can hear us and you are able, we get your AV back?
She's back.
Jo?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We'd love you to chime in.
There you go. Yeah, so just helicoptering down now into the business and looking at the survey, what I wanted to sort of really share is some opinions that I have from, general experience as well at going to creating go-to-market strategies for hotels. That definitely from COVID, we're heading into in most cases, businesses going now on a new journey in business. And I think collectively we understand there's some intrinsically that we're all connected to business, and that tourism actually is an essential. Eventually it will be an essential because it certainly is essential to our personal well-being. I think anyone that's in a small place like a Singapore or whatever, and you feel quite suffocated, you constantly have to get out of those locations. And so having, experience with inside of that has been quite interesting. I think wellness tourism operators are exceptionally good at collecting data, but not so strategic about communicating out to their guests when they're off property. So I think in the future, I think just slowing it down and actually being really clear about your database and what you're trying to communicate. In terms of your question at the very beginning, which was, what is wellness tourism? What will become of that? I think it's going to be not just an on-property experience. I think what we're seeing, and I think, you highlighted it before, the online apps and so forth. I think what I'm seeing is a lot of development of wellbeing apps with very much a family focus. And that was pre-COVID that this was happening. So I think it was heading technically into those spaces anyway, where how can we actually care for our guests when they are off property? They have invested to come here and be nourished by our foods and our consultants and so forth, and our beautiful locations and the experiences that can be created on property. But how do we take that home? Some of the things that I think that the hotels may actually want to take out of their strategies in the future, and it's just a concept is, there's a lot of media for meals that happen, and what I'm seeing is that because things are becoming so much more localized now, where it's local travel, that CEOs are the ones that are getting engaged to do for meals, curated think weeks that are starting to happen. Social influencers are moving out of the businesses, and the influential CEOs can come in and play a different part to creating business that goes back into night stays and mice and all of those things. So I think action speaks louder than words in the future. It's on site, it's about the CEOs, it's about the GMs, beg your pardon, the GMs being centered around and shape-shifting into being really clear about sales funnel management on property. And I believe that, diversification strategies are already starting to take place, where we can't rely on room occupancy in the future. We have to look for other supply chain models that can feed into our businesses when they're fully occupied, such as I'm starting to see activation of big supply chains or big hotel chains buying skincare companies, or locally sourcing and creating, economies around circular economies or reducing waste. And I think there's cost out strategies that will really be focused on business in the future as we helicopter down and become more simplified in our approach.
Hey, thank you, Joe. And I kind of concur on your, where does the intersection of businesses and well-being start coming together? And we're going to shift, the perfect segue to shift gears and kind of move a little bit more towards innovations and technologies. Just on that idea of, how did different products merge in the last week or two in the domestic in North America, and it's a global company, but Lululemon bought or announced trying to acquire Mirror, which is a tech platform for $500 million. It's just a few years old, and I think there's a lot of really good examples of where some new innovations, technologies, go-to-market plans that were within a destination or a set of hotels. How did those start merging with retail and other businesses in the well-being space? So with that, I'm going to segue to our next set of questions, and that is really around technology and innovations. And one of our team members, Vijay, runs a Ayurvedic wellness retreat and spa spa platform in India and focus on the Indian and Sri Lankan market. And they've developed some really interesting variations of their product as a result of the pandemic. And so Vijay is going to share a little of the insight, his points of view and insight on what kinds of new technologies, innovations, and experiences maybe should brands and businesses start thinking about as we rebound, and how do we specifically tap into this need consumers have around wellness and travel, and especially when they can't travel, how do we keep them excited and keep ideas top of mind? I'm sure we've all seen plenty of variations of kind of the armchair traveler message from your favorite OTA or app. How do we go beyond that and think about actual tools and innovations that'll help support customers? So Vijay, I'd love to pass it to you, and if you wouldn't mind jumping on in.
Thank you, Adam. Can you hear me?
You're great. Go for it.
Yeah. So take forward from what Joe was saying, that wellness, whether it's Ayurvedic or yoga or whatever, it doesn't end with a 15 days or 10-day visit to a retreat. Wellness is there all 365 days. So taking on that concept, we built some online programs for where you could continue to do your wellness at home. So what was an idea before COVID, COVID actually forced us to innovate and come up with programs. So today we have launched 2 programs using Ayurveda. One is to build gut immunity using Ayurvedic detox program, and one is a respiratory immunity program. Apart from that, we have collaborated with our existing retreats across India. We run webinars on various topics such as how do you mental wellness, how do you detox yourself at home, etc., and why you need to detox at home. And this is getting us a lot of interest from various countries. So we have taken to the next logical step of having teleconsultation. So through Zoom, we consult, our wellness partners and the yogis at the wellness retreats, they can consult with their various people across the world, and that keeps them engaged. And in terms of how do we market this, we don't do it alone. I don't think in COVID time you can get to burn money. So building affiliation, collaboration is the key. So we have collaborated with many people to be able to market these programs. And one of the largest and important things that we are in the process of developing is something what we would like to call it as a wellness quotient. So through a algorithm using Ayurvedic principles, we are coming up with a wellness quotient where people can, check their wellness quotient at any point of the year. So that will heighten the awareness level of how well they are right now keeping and what they need to do to ensure their continued well-being throughout the year. So these are some of the innovations that we are doing. As far as the wellness partners are doing, some of them are, today I think any of the wellness centers, to be able to go in, you need to have an oximeter, you need to check their oxygen levels. Some of them have gone to a level where they're even having a UVC bulbs to disinfect all microbes and viruses 24 hours before the guest checks in. So these are the innovations that people are doing using technology. And we are hopeful that all these efforts will pay off in the long run, and we build the wellness over the years to come.
Hey, Vijay, thank you for sharing kind of some of the examples of what your team is doing. I know that there is a large focus on apps, which we talked about earlier, and Katherine shared some of that data around just apps. There are also lots of new physical innovations to help deliver experiences that connect people to a community, but when they can't physically be in a community, how are they delivering different aspects of well-being, whether that's fitness, mindfulness and yoga, breath work and restoration. I think there's quite a bit of growth in this space of bringing physical experiences to life that maybe don't have lots of people all together, and that may be an outcome of the pandemic, and we'll see how some of those become conduits to encourage people to travel as they think about their well-being as it relates to travel and tourism and experiences to have on trips. But I do want to throw it to the group for just a moment. Anybody want to bring anything around innovations or technology to the table? Okay.
Adam, sorry,
Yeah.
Adam, just, one thing. I think with this space of bringing nature inside and out. So how do you connect a business? You know, we know that, 72% of consumers are thinking that nature is the number one thing they're looking for. And so how does an operator or a hotelier or whatever it is in a spa, how do they bring that natural element in? So, what are the fabrics and textures? What are they doing with scent in terms of smell? How are they connecting? And Daniel, I think it'd be really interesting to hear from you around, have you seen any of the learnings in your spas, especially across the region, in terms of how they're trying to bring a little bit of nature into the kind of main domain?
Yes, thanks, Katherine. I think we do have a spa in Hawaii. It's called the Spa Without Walls. And it's interesting because the entire spa is actually built outside. And in this time, everybody can imagine that this is basically the ideal spa, but that's been done for about 10 years already. We also have other spas and resorts that have built what we call beach cabana. So we are actually now building facilities in order to offer treatments that are outside. So it's more like thinking about the spa outside. When it comes to taking the nature back inside, this is also, for example, with Fairmont, we identified already 2 years ago that this was very important, and we have actually created new design guidelines that involves green walls and all of those things that we hope to be able to bring. It's a little bit more complicated. I think what's important is to really try to bring people back to the outside. Obviously, this is difficult in a city hotel, and that's where we have to think about how design can impact, biophilic design actually can impact how we're moving forward in this field.
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit of movement towards kind of integrating nature and restoration. A partner I'm working closely with is developing a platform centered around nature-based restoration, and then how do you bring products like that through technology and through physical platforms beyond just a phone or a device? How do you bring that to spas and hotels where sometimes getting into nature is actually not that easy? One of the biggest insights from the pandemic was the movement from urban to more rural and outdoor spaces, and that kind of came out loud and clear in our research around the importance of connecting to nature being number one. When that's not physically possible, how do we do that through digital variations and elements where nature is brought into the spaces? As something as simple as living green walls, how do those impact people's feeling of the space for a short period? And those would be challenges to kind of ask to the group. I do want to ask one last question before we wrrap up today, and this is, I just want to ask one last question, and we'll open it up to the group, to one of our team members. Iona's on with us, and we want to really just get a sense of, what does the future of wellness tourism look like, and how do markets and brands capitalize on, a focus on health and safety and translate that into concepts that will ultimately win the hearts and minds of consumers. What should small brands, destinations, businesses be doing now? And one of our team members in the group is kind of working on this in her market in Romania, and I'd love to ask her to jump in. And she is with us. So Iona, do you want to share some thoughts?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm Iona from Romania, and I will speak about what is specific to Eastern European countries. And you know that Ayurveda, India has Ayurveda, China has traditional Chinese medicine. But in Eastern European countries, we have the healing with natural resources. And we've been blessed with a lot of mineral and thermal springs, with the mofetas, which are some emanation of gases, benefit for the blood circulation. We have salt mines and salt lakes that increase our immunity, are very good for the asthma problems and the lung diseases, and also for treatment after COVID. We have a diverse bioclimate. We have natural ionization of the air. We have a predominance of negative ions up to 2000 ions per cubic centimeter. All of that are for free. We found them in the nature. We also have mood clay, some medical plants, in fact, all kinds of medical plants. We have forest and so on. And all of that can be used also in spa rituals. And in fact, we did, in Romania, at least, we did 10 spa rituals, different spa rituals in all over the country with what is specific in that region. So we bring the nature into the spa with plants, with salt, with mud, with clay, and we use them all in the spa rituals. And but also in the other countries from Eastern European, we really have to focus on bringing clients now in our countries because it's really healthy. All that is almost free. It contributes at their healthy system and the immunity system, and they can benefit from the natural healing resources in a modern wellness and spa approach. So that's what we are working on and also I'm a member in the Eastern European Initiative, and now we are preparing a material with treatments post-COVID in Eastern European countries. And we have some very interesting treatments to propose, natural treatments, of course.
And I think, Ioana, you raise a really good point there about the healing benefits of natural springs and water therapy, which is huge. And it's a great asset of Eastern European areas, but there's loads of opportunities globally in this space. So I think this return to ancient rituals and traditions in wellness continues for healing, continues to be a very authentic way for destinations to leverage this space. So I think that's really, really good. I would just add a couple of points to this space of thinking about what else operators, destinations can be doing in this space. And I feel like we get that, the health message is almost, an underscored piece that is just, all of us need to do that, but it's how we communicate health and safety in terms of our operations, and the tone of voice that we use to use that is something that I think people need to consider, so that people are not fearful around it. They know that you're in good hands with it. But the two other points is really thinking about expanding your wellness offering beyond a single moment or experience. And I know some products are doing a great job of this. I saw that Hyatt released some kind of opportunities in this space in terms of, treating the customer or the visitor through the entire touch points of while they're prior to booking. How do you connect their wellness journey, especially with technology, and how do you bring that through to the guest experience, and then post as well. I think this is a massive opportunity for wellness travel, and I think that links to personalization, which I don't think we've touched on as well. So how do you personalize as much as possible that guest experience to ensure that, in a time of need with COVID out there, we're really looking at what do we need, and everyone's risk appetite is different, and we need to understand that individual risk appetites around COVID need to be addressed, and how we want to consume our wellness travel. I've just seen that Susie has put something in the chat around work and wellness, and someone else has as well. Adam, are you okay if I just briefly touch on that, or do you want to seek some input on this question first?
Yeah, let's kind of balance both. So, but we do want to talk about work and wellness, but I really would love to make sure anybody on the group in our last 5 minutes has a chance to weigh in, because really this is summarizing it all. It's, as we move into this world of we accept COVID and it's part of our lives for the foreseeable future, what are businesses and brands doing to develop go-to-market plans and really capture the eyes and minds of customers? So, and if anybody does want to weigh in, but Katherine, why don't you start with a little bit about work and wellness, and then we will leave the last 2 minutes for open questions.
Sure. Well, I might share the research. I've got just 1 or 2 slides that we did on the research study. So, obviously businesses that have a high corporate kind of guest experience are struggling at the moment, obviously. And so we asked some questions specifically around wellness and work in this one. And we said, you know, some of it is not such good news, and then there are silver linings, because we always like to begin and end with silver linings of COVID. The first was 40% of respondents said they will take less work trips when travel resumes. We all know that. And why is that? Because essentially there were 3 reasons. And again, not surprising that it's financial savings for them, minimising the health and safety concerns of staff, etc., as they travel, and operating more smoothly in terms of digital meetings, etc. However, the silver lining is, what are they looking for in terms of wellness? And our phase 1 research that we did pre-COVID revealed that, and I'll have to check the stat for you in just one second, of how a significant percentage of our delegates said they were prepared to pay more. It was about 40% were prepared to pay more for a wellness accommodation provider that met their wellness needs. And so again, people are pre-COVID were looking for that, and post-COVID even more. So if you want to target a business traveler, and you need to really look at what you can do, these are the things that you should be looking for. So obviously it's a no-brainer that cleanliness and protocols around that need to be clearly communicated. But really the things that they're looking for and the changes that have happened is, you know, continue on with looking at how do you deliver exceptional food that really boosts health and well-being for the business traveller. But the sleep experience and the bed and the room are still really important in terms of, you know, quietness, natural light, all of those sorts of things. But what has come into play now post COVID is even an opportunity for outdoor recreation spaces for the wellness traveller. So really that's become extremely important, as well as obviously that beautiful spa, which continues to be important, but has dropped to the same level as outdoor recreation. So some stuff to really think about in terms of how to shape your sort of business traveller offering.
Katherine, I'm just going to quickly build in one last thought tied to that around design, and an area that I focus a lot on is we are all in this world kind of recognizing wearing masks, learning about how valuable being outdoors is versus indoors. So thinking about properties specifically, how can they recreate unique outdoor settings? And in the past, as travelers maybe looked for spa or fitness as very important, and those constantly tick on our surveys as being something that is a decision maker. Kind of covered and functional outdoor spaces was not something that people actively looked at on an ongoing basis as they were deciding where to go, whether it was leisure or more importantly business. That could become an area that for properties, whether in an urban environment with a courtyard or a much more suburban or rural area, you know, how do you highlight and market and focus on that as a mechanism to win over travelers? That becomes something that is very critical as they're making their decision of which property to stay at. So I think we are nearly at time, and I want to thank you on behalf of our group. And if there's anything, Katherine, you want to add back at the end before we pass it back to Beatrice.
No, I just think from our perspective, you know, we've tried to give you a kind of litmus test of some of the research that we've done. There's been a bit in the chat around when are we going to publish the results. We'll share this kind of top level. We finished the survey on the 7th of July. So this was kind of the most immediate bits and pieces that we could provide at this stage, but we will be doing some fact sheets as well. And again, please reach out with us. We'll send you all the links, and we're really open to helping you with any particular questions you may have in this space.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us for this and learning about wellness tourism. And if you are interested, anybody on the group that might want to be part of our team, please reach out to me or Katherine. We'd love to chat with you about our kind of ongoing initiative. So Beatrice, I think we're passing it back your way.
Thank you so much, Adam and Katherine and the entire initiative team. It was an amazing call, so insightful to learn about the results from your research and also about all the different parts of the world, what's going on there. So thank you so much for putting this together. And I'm just wondering if Susie or Nancy want to give the final word, but thank you so much.
Thank you, Beatrice, and thank you, Adam and Katherine and your whole team. This was very, very helpful. And I'll just remind people that we are going to share the chat with you and all the contact information, because I've been seeing that people are interested in that. And I just want to add how important this initiative is, and I'm so glad you've been so busy working. I want to add to the fact that we're all wanting to travel again. We are going to do our Global Wellness Summit, maybe you've heard, in Palm Beach in November 8th through 11th. And I have learned from this and your previous results that people want to come together, but they want to also have distance. And fortunately, we're going to be at the Breakers, where there's a lot of outdoor space. There'll be ability to do outdoor things. And now, since I've learned on this call, I think we should add an adventure component to it, so that when people come, it's not just going to all be about meeting, but we'll have some adventure activities too. So thank you for that. And Nancy, over to you for a last thought.
Oh, just thank you, everyone. This was a really wonderful call, and I particularly love how global the conversation is, which is very, very impressive. And I made the same notes about all of your insights impacting greatly the planning of the summit, and adventure was right on there. I loved the well-doing. I thought that was wonderful. So thank you all for that, and look forward to more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well done.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody take good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.